3, 2, 1, 0.
To be a audiophonic culture. In other words, they think about things in sounds. It's not so much pictures as sound. Seem to be a audiophonic culture. In other words, they think about things. In stone, it teaches about some interesting shape power science. And if you go to the next slide, this will show the experiment. One of these ancients was actually a book in stone that teaches about some interesting shape power science. And if you go to the next slide, this will show the experiment. One of these ancients, a book in stone.
The Commandment Rock Crescent Boomerang at Lane Cove, New South Wales on Sydney's Lower North Shore. Its ancestral engraving site along the Turumbura Lane Cove River. This symbol was not created at random by the Camarago ancestors, but it was intentional and symbolic. They took the time to find specific locations with good acoustic properties within the Lower North Shore area for the generation of sound energy for their spiritual sciences of acoustic-induced altered states of consciousness practices. The Commandment Rock Ancestral engraving site being one of those chosen locations.
Seeing sound, but I really wanted to use this relatively new science as it was emerging then in the 90s. Cymatics is the science of visible sound. It simply means that whenever sound is present and there's a membrane present, then there must be a pattern of acoustic energy imprinted on that membrane. Right? It's invisible, you can't see it, but it must happen. The laws of physics tell us so, right? So to make it visible in cymatic principles, one simply sprinkles on some revealing medium. If we're talking about a membrane and particulate matter, then you just sprinkle on some powder. It's a little bit seeing sound.
The crescent boomerang is a part of the symbolic system used by the ancestors to assist them in their energetic spiritual science practices, as well as used for the purpose of generating energy into this part of the Turumbura Lane Cove River. They set up a maintenance and regeneration practice for this location at the Commandment Rock Ancestral engraving site, where they were focusing sound to generate energy. What we are dealing with here is ancient Camarago frequency. Every frequency has a specific shape or pattern, and the brain is hardwired to recognize patterns. Like pareidolia is a tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual. A nebulous stimulus is an indistinct stimulus that can be interpreted in a meaningful way by the brain. This can lead to seeing patterns, objects, or meaning where there is none. The engraved boomerang was used to successfully induce brainwaves at different frequencies as a result of audio-visual entrainment via light and sound stimulation methods.
Is that it gives an illusion of depth, just like when you look in a mirror. And one of the interesting things about sound reflection is that it gives an illusion of depth, just like when you look in a mirror. And one of the is
that you see in your cerebral cortex, in your mind's eye, as you go into other states of consciousness, they would be chevrons, little inverted V's. You'd have concentric circles, semicircles, spirals. You'd have all these weird symbols, phenomena. And entoptic phenomena is something that's associated with other states of consciousness. Basically, you got symbols that you see in your cerebral cortex, in your mind's eye. As you go into other states of consciousness, they would be chevrons, little inverted V's. You'd have concentric circles, semicircles, spirals. You'd have all these weird symbols, phenomena. And entoptic symbols that you see in your
The most important part of the mammoth rock ancestral engraving site at Lane Cove on the Turumbura is its resonance, which altered the Camarago ancestors' perception. Altogether with ritual practices like singing and dancing made the ancestors enter states of trance so they could access the spiritual realm through altered states of consciousness. And then while in, or for the purpose of inducing, they depicted the entoptic phenomena found at this part of the Turumbura. Entoptic imagery and altered states of consciousness. On the definition of entoptic imagery is a visual experience arising from anywhere within the optic system, which includes the eyes, the occipital lobe of the brain, and the many other portions of the neural cortex that process visual stimuli. Entoptic indicates imagery that arises from anywhere within the visual system, from the eyes to the neural cortex. In the 1960s, neuropsychologists began cataloguing the visual imagery of altered state of consciousness subjects given LSD or mescaline would lie on mattresses, describing their visions into researchers' tape recorders. The first stage of the hallucinogenic experience, whether brought on by drugs, sensory deprivation, fasting or rhythmic movement, is characterized by recurring geometric patterns known as phosphenes or entoptics. The 7 most common categories being grids, parallel lines, dots, zigzags, meanders, spirals, and nested curves. This image is a depiction of entoptic imagery seen during trance by the ancestors. The crescent boomerang is a metaphor for entering the supernatural realm through a visual stimuli under certain conditions through trance. There is another place you can see this carving, and that is inside your head.
If I could get to the site and measure them, I guarantee they're going to have specific measurements within them. These were smart people. They were recording, preserving, and memorizing their information into these spaces. And no doubt, this is what was going on here.
During the 1900s, and I think a lot of this stupidity is finally coming unglued, and we're going to have a new science coming in here. Yes. During the 1900s, and I think a lot of this stupidity is finally coming unglued, and we're going to have a new science coming in here. Yes. During the 1900s, and I.
This wasn't to tell them a story that someone had a great boomerang or made one. So what? Every man did. Well, this place was where you can find good wood to make one. No, this is bigger than regurgitated colonial academia assumptions. Remember, they had an obsession with the spiritual realm and an obsession with practicing and improving their techniques for exploring and navigating ways to induce deepest trance state experiences. The word Entoptic means within vision. This is the ancestral energetic sciences of this part of the Turumbura. It is a sacred space used as a means to reach higher consciousness where the Kamarego ancestors went within seeking understanding, using the primal sounds of the universe when they chanted songs. The natural life is from frequency, sound, electricity, light, and all motions, whether external or internal, body or mind are all these things. The ancient Kamarego ancestors understood frequency and the generation of energy because they understood the consciousness code, sound, frequency, and synchronicity.
Feral beat on the track.
The acoustics is a mystery because how did they? The evidence is high. First and foremost, how did these guys discover advanced acoustics? And it is advanced. There's engineering design features inside these acoustic waves that can only be explained by acoustics. Now let me explain that.